Today's story time with Steve is about Saint Brigid's Day. Hey Steve, what is Saint Brigid's Day?
Well, St. Brigid's Day is the 1st of February, and it's one of the old quarter days. There's actually two sets of quarter days. There's the solstice and equinox, and then there's the days that are halfway between those. And these are the days that are some of the old fire festivals, like Imbolc, which became St. Brigid's Day, also became Groundhog's Day in some other cultures, and May Day and Halloween. They're all festivals from that calendar system. St. Bridget supposedly died on that day, and that's how a feast day is the day that a saint dies and goes to heaven.
What is she a saint of?
Well, she is one of the patron saints of Ireland. She was lived after St. Patrick, but and her ministry was mostly after St. Patrick, but she may have been. Some stories say she was baptized by St. Patrick. She's one of the three principal apostles of Ireland. They're Patrick, Bridget, and Columkill or Columba. And his feast day is June 9th.
And what does the St. Brigid's cross represent?
Well, the St. Brigid's cross traditionally is made out of grass or reeds, and here's one that came from Ireland. It was from like a souvenir shop sort of thing. And what you'd do is you'd weave them into like this pinwheel sort of thing. The story goes that when St. Bridget was ministering to a dying chieftain, or in some cases they say the legend was her father, as she was, doing this, she wove a cross out of reeds from the floor, and it became a tradition to make one on the eve of St. Brigid's Day. So on the 31st of January, you'd make a St. Brigid's cross, and you would then take the one that you'd hang it up over the door or over the mantle, something like that. And then you'd take the one from last year and you'd feed it to your cow or your horse for good luck and good health in the coming year. And it's kind of a fertility time anyway, because this is the spring. It's when the cattle are all pregnant, and you're anticipating new growth and new things like that. The spring is coming. It's sort of a spring festival. Hard to believe here where it's very, very cold. But,
Can you tell me a little bit about the crosses you've made previously?
yes, the first ones I did that I made that I made multiples of were these two here, which I made about 1998, I believe. And over the years, not all of them worked out so well. I try to do something kind of unique each year, but I'll make a mold and make multiples of them. And like this one here is got a flower in it. Actually, I think one of the Lindsays made that, and that's flower is St. Brigid's flower, which is an anemone coronaria, and that's a beautiful thing. This is one of my favorites. This one I did about 2 years ago, and that was kind of based on the style of Archibald Knox, who was one of the great innovators of the Celtic revival. The one I made this year is here. This was made from weaving together wires and strips of silver, and then they were soldered together, fused into a solid unit. And then this was a master model to make a rubber mold. Here's the rubber mold, and this has been injected with wax, and then we use this to make lost wax casting multiples. So we can inject this over and over again, and then by covering this with plaster, we make a mold that you burn the wax out, and you have a cavity that works just like makes an exact replica. Here's one of the finished pieces. I did this a little early because I'm not going to be able to make it on the. Also, it's available. We've got multiples already made. This is one that we made a few years ago. It's a medal of the face of Saint Bridget. You can tell it's Bridget because she has her little pinwheel cross there, and she's quite the favorite of. There's many legends, many stories about it. One of my favorite stories about Saint Bridget is the story of the brooch relates to jewelry. And the story goes that a young maiden who was very attractive had been spied by this bad, evil, wicked man who lived, and they lived in the time and in the community of Saint Brigid. And she, the girl, caught his eye, and he, being a wicked, lustful, bad person, desired her passionately, and he connived a wicked plan so that he could have her. And what he did is he took his brooch and he gave it to her and asked her to keep that safe for him. And then he sneaked into her home and stole it from her. And he took it and he threw it in the river. So then he demanded his brooch back, and since she didn't have it, she was in his debt. So he took her to court and demanded that she now be his slave because the value of a brooch was so great. So the girl went and she talked to Saint Brigid, implored her to pray to God and to help her get through this dilemma of hers. So Bridget went down to she prayed on it, and she went down to the river, and she went fishing, and she caught a fish, and as she gutted open the fish, she found the brooch. The fish had eaten the brooch. So she took the brooch back to the court, and she held it up for everyone to see, and everybody recognized that it is his brooch. Now he had his brooch back, and she was no longer in his debt, and Bridget saved this girl from this, this great abuse and loss of her freedom. So we learned a couple things about medieval jewelry in the Celtic world from this. One is that the brooches were unique enough that everybody could recognize that it was this man's brooch, and the other is that it had a tremendous value, worth as much as a slave.